Hey, we're at the Food IT event here in San Francisco, and I'm talking to Damir Wallener, the CEO of EIO. And by the way, I was asking Damir about his company, and I didn't get the reference to EIO, which is a farm technology, right? You're at least kind of related to the farm. Tell us about it.
It's so the name actually comes from Old MacDonald. No surprise. And the reason we ended up with that is we needed to file our incorporation papers the next morning. Nobody on the team was coming up with anything, so I threatened to use EIO, hoping that would spur a conversation of some kind. Deafening silence, so I'm not one to back.
Be careful what threats you give.
So we filed with EIO.
Well, it's a good name, I think. But tell us what it is, because I think it's an interesting technology. You're involved with milk and cows and udders. Tell us specifically what that means.
So we do early detection of mastitis, which is an inflammation leading to an infection in the udders of dairy animals. This is the largest health problem in the dairy sector. Current approaches will leave cows untreated for up to 2 months. Our technology allows immediate detection and allows for diagnostic decisions to be made in a matter of days instead of months.
Tell us about the old world. How are things done in the past, and why is it so antiquated? And why is yours so much better?
So the standard way of doing things currently is using milk samples actually taken from the cow, and then they go to a lab, and the results come back from the lab. And if you imagine an automated milking parlor where a cow is being milked every 9 seconds, there's just no time to take that kind of sample.
Yeah.
And the cost of doing the lab work is very expensive. So by having a solution that does not rely on touching the animal or having any sort of biological samples, we're able to greatly, we can scale. The biological tests don't scale, we do. It's based on infrared sensing and machine learning, and so it's basically a software solution to what used to be a biological.
And the dairy farmers can do it in the field in the sense that and it never has to go to a lab?
That's correct. And by in the field, we mean in the milking parlor, because the cows have to come by there every time. And so that's what we do. We mount inside the milking parlors of the dairy farms, and every cow gets automatically tested, zero labor effort, every time it comes in to get milked.
The interesting thing to me about bringing technology to the farm is it seems like it's happening at a really rapid pace. And there's kind of it's interesting now, you wouldn't necessarily think, your first assumption would be as an outsider, the farm is seeing lots of technology. But is it because there's just so much economic activity around farming and such a big part of our lives, and technology just brings such huge benefits? Why are we seeing all this interesting technology come to solve these solutions? Why are we seeing it now all of a sudden?
For us, it's a combination of the sensors are finally getting cheap enough that we can put them in a barn environment where they're likely to get destroyed. Dairy barns, for example, are fairly harsh environments in terms of moisture, let's just say. Right. Our first device corroded in 18 hours, the first one we ever put in a barn. And the other aspect is that the cloud has allowed us to bring really, really large amounts of computing power to the problems we're trying to solve. And so the combination of finally being able to collect large data sets off of our sensors in the barns and the technology to process it in the cloud, we're finally kind of at a point where we're getting to kind of critical mass on being able to build applications that actually work for farmers.
I mean, I think we've been talking about this concept of the Internet of Things for at least 10 years. In concept and in theory, it was great, but we've really seen it mature. And like you said, technology and sensors have hardened, they've gotten mature, they can go out into rough environments, and the processing power brought to bear by the cloud, that combo is a sweet combination for what you guys are doing.
Yes, and we firmly believe that 10 years from now, everybody's going to be testing cows the way we do now. So we found this problem because we have a friend who's a goat farmer, and we were solving his problem. Because with 200 goats, he didn't have the capability of using high-end tools. So it's like, can we make something for him? And it turned out the answer was yes.
So was it born out of you guys doing a project as part of were you consulting? What was the original thing that became this company EIO? What did
it was my friend Corey. My friend Corey is a cheese farmer on Vancouver Island. He raises about 200 goats to supply the milk for his cheese. And he had infections in his own goats. So Corey is an old software guy as well. So he's retired to cheese making. And this project was born on my kitchen table using parts we got from DigiKey, and software we wrote ourselves. to solve his actual problem in his actual barn. So it took about 6 months.
Were you in farming or were you in technology? What was your background?
So I'm a technology guy. I'm a kind of a classic domain jumper. I've been in consumer electronics, fintech. I've been all over the place. Funnily though, the very first company I ever tried to start, and it failed spectacularly, was in the late 80s. I tried to build software for vineyard management. But at that time, the sensors were ridiculously expensive. There was no networking. There was no wireless. Banyan vines.
You were only 20 years ahead of your time at that point. Maybe 30?
Yeah, there's a point where you're so far ahead that you're just wrong.
So talk about EIO in terms of like the business, right? So is it a model where you work with farmers as kind of a sensor and software as a service? Like, are you kind of providing a managed platform?
That's exactly right. So the package basically installs permanently on the milking platform. And it's no touch. There's nothing that the farmer has to do. The data all flows through us, and the diagnostics go to wherever he wants. Normally to his head veterinarian. So it's all they do is pay a monthly service fee based on the size of the farm. There's no capital cost. We take care of everything.
It's funny when we think of like enterprises, like a business enterprise, a corporation. There's IT managers, there's CIOs. Are we moving to a world where there's going to have to be like a farm technology manager, or is this stuff going to be so turnkey they can just pay a subscription and kind of largely manage it with their own kind of I'm just a farmer, I have my domain expertise, and it's fairly turnkey, or do we need someone who's going to manage this stuff?
I think for the larger farms it's going to be, there's an in-between, right? So you can imagine if you're the CTO of Google, that's a little bit different than being the CTO of, I don't know, Sears or something like that, right? There are different kind of levels of technical depth you need. But you're talking about a farm that maybe has 15,000 acres under cultivation. They'll have 15 LLCs in there. They'll be doing 14 different products to 48 different. There's such a mix of technologies and all that in there that whether they call it a CTO or a CIO position, the reality is somebody in that organization is going to have some sort of grounding in technology, or they're not even going to know what to try, kind of thing. So we see that happening in farms. What we really like about farmers in general is that they don't just take anything. They want to know that it works. And that's a little different than other parts of our economy where it's like, I don't know, I'll just try and you see what happens. But with these guys, when you get in and you prove it works, they love you.
I think farms classically are very flat organizations, right? And in typical corporate environments, there's a lot of layers, there's a lot of CYA, but with farmers, it's like, this is for me, and this is how I'm going to pay my bills, and this better work.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree with that, yes.
Last question, what is the typical farmer like today? Are you working with like classic farmers that have been in the family for generations, or are there people who are completely new to farming and because it feels like there are people there's almost a farming renaissance. People are getting back into it. Who's your customer?
Yeah, so our early adopters are families. We say family farm, but these are substantial businesses, right? But they third, fourth generation, so they've been in for a long time, and that doesn't mean they can't be early adopters. So they're all really interested in being the best farm they can be, having the healthiest cows they can have, having the most productive cows they can have, and that's what motivates them. But that is an interesting question because every single one of our early adopters is a multi-generational family farm.
Interesting. Hey, well, thanks for spending time. And where can people find out more about EIO?
EIOdiagnostics.com.
All right, thanks a lot.
We're the only EIO out there. Thank you.